Hello, 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 wherever you are in the world. This is Kulmahay and I'm the immersion coach. I hope you're well. Hope you've had a great day, guys. While I'm waiting for people to jump on, I'm just going to share this out to a couple of my groups. Just bear with me, please. Okay, I'll just share it onto my page. By the way, guys, if you're not already on my page, look out for my page. It's literally Kulmahay, so please do join it. And we have a second page called Ignite Your Inner Potential, and we have a group called Ignite Your Inner Potential, which is a private group. So if you're not already linked into any one of those, then please do so, because most of my Facebook lives and live content will be moved onto those pages and groups. So I look forward to being a part of your life in that way. So just let me just share this into one more place. And we're good to go, I think. We're good to go. So yes, please do join Ignite Your Inner Potential. Please do join my page, my page, I'll start all over again. It's one of those days. I've been hard at it today and I've literally just stopped. So you can join my page, Ignite Your Inner Potential. You can join my other page, Kulmahay. And you can join my private group, which is also Ignite Your Inner Potential. And from Sunday, I shall be reducing the amount of Facebook Lives I am doing on my personal timeline, just to get some control over my own personal timeline again, to be honest, more than anything else. And I'll be sharing more content on there. So if you want to have more content or continue to have more content from me, please do join me. Primarily join me in the Ignite Your Inner Potential private group. I will put a link to the group at the end of this video within the comments. So guys, I hope you're well. Hope you've had a good day. Let's see who's on here. Let me say hello to a few people. Hey Arthi, good to see you all the way from South Africa. Namaste to you too, and happy Diwali. Nick, good to see you. Connie, good to see you. Rosina, good to see you. Connie's all the way from US. We've got an international audience. Hey Jatinder, good to see you. And Rosina, thanks for jumping on. So guys, Arthi said that makes sense. We need to do that too. The truth of it is, Arthi, I've been doing daily Facebook Lives on my private timeline now for like 3 years, and I've been as consistent as I possibly can. I've missed a few days here and there, but I've tried to give value every single day on a daily Facebook Live, and it's a big ask. It's a big ask when you're running a very busy business, but I've wanted to continue to do that. And then as my group was growing, Ignite Your Inner Potential, I think it's got something like 6,500 people on there. My main page has got something like 63,000 people on there. And I've just started up a new page called Ignite Your Inner Potential as well. And that's growing. I've sent out some invites today. As all of those start growing, it just makes sense that I now spend more of my time giving out that level of content to the people who really want it, rather than just pushing it at people through my private timeline. And I want to try and get my private timeline more private again. And also I'm focusing more on LinkedIn as well. So a lot of my video content is now going to be on LinkedIn. So it's as simple as that. There's no more confusing, complicated messages than that. However, on this private timeline, every Sunday I have now brought back Coffee with Cole. And Coffee with Cole are my interview shows that I have with incredible people from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of walks of life, and we challenge some really topical issues. Last week I interviewed Raj Renu, who at the age of 34 became a widower and a single father to 3 young children under the age of 7, and still running a business, and that was a really powerful interview. And this Sunday coming, I shall be interviewing a lady called Susan Marrow. Susan I've known for more than 2 decades, and she has always been at a high level of corporate sales and dealing with high pressure sales environments. And we're going to be talking about what creates bullying in the workplace and how to deal with bullying in the workplace, because as you may know, next week is anti-bullying week. and we've both worked in some oppressive environments in our time, and we just want to share some thoughts with you as to what that might look like, how that might make you feel, and what you could do about that moving forward, and also some advice for leaders who might get sucked up into this authoritarian kind of way of being, and how that, and get them to understand how that might impact on their staff. And talking about leadership, which is my number one passion in life, having been a leader myself for 20 years and continuing to lead now, leadership is like my number one passion in life. And I have my own views on how people should be led and how leaders should behave and how leaders should think. And that's where I go out and train within organizations. I train leaders to think in a wholly different way. A traditional sense of leadership is about, being authoritarian, relying on the scrambled egg that's on your shoulder maybe, or the position that you hold, or the title that you hold, or where you sit within the organization and telling people what to do. That isn't effective leadership for me. And last night, I was watching a program called The Apprentice. It's a UK program called The Apprentice. Now, I know there's various versions around the world of the same program, but in the UK, the program The Apprentice is really about getting aspiring business leaders, young people more often not, young people who are aspiring business leaders, to come and be on this reality show where they get tasked every single week with different projects and get put into teams, and they have to do these incredible projects, high pressured situations, and they are finally judged by Lord Alan Sugar, who every week will fire the person that he thought was least effective in whichever project they did on that particular week. So yesterday, what happened in this program as I was watching it was that the teams were split into two, and Lord Alan Sugar said to them, okay, so what I want you to do, guys, is to create a budget airlines. And that means you have to create the branding. It means you have to do a 30-second advert, a TV advert. And it also means that you have to choose the uniform that the steward and stewardesses would wear. So off the teams went, and the teams have to then choose who's going to be the project manager to lead each one of the teams. So the project managers were chosen, and the one that I'm going to focus on is a guy called Karan Pooning. And on his team, he had about 6 people, I think it was 5 or 6 people on his team, and he sat down with his team and told them, I want to create a business budget airline. That's what I really want to do. And that's what he said. And the rest of the team sort of listened to him, and then they had this big debate, and the big debate was, well, actually, let's make it fun. Let's create a pop culture kind of headline airline that takes people to party destinations, like Magaluf or Ibiza, which is where a lot of Europeans will go for partying. Now, he clearly did not like that, but he went with it because the majority of the team was saying, let's create this kind of a airline. Now, the thing is, he could have handled that in a wholly different situation, a wholly different way. I learned a lot about key leadership lessons, or rather how not to be a leader, from this young man called Karan. He was so confident in his skills. His ego was, wow, it was off the scale in terms of how he behaved. And I think they described him later on as almost royalty, the way he behaved and the way that he spoke. Let's talk down to people. So as a leader, he did not score very well, if at all, in my book. And I thought, well, you know what? I could just say this guy had no leadership abilities whatsoever. But that's not enough, because I would have to be here for hours talking about what went wrong. So I'm just going to focus on 3 things that I think he got wrong as a leader. 3 fundamental things that I think he got wrong as a leader last night watching the show. The first one was, when he told people, or spoke to his team and talked about his vision of creating a business budget airline, what he got wrong was he didn't communicate that in a very inspiring kind of way. He clearly had some kind of a vision, because you could see that he was thinking, he was picturing it in his head, but he didn't communicate that vision that he had effectively to his team. as a leader, it's very important for your team to be bought into your vision. It's very important for them to see the same picture that you're seeing, and for them to be motivated and inspired by that. He did nothing to motivate or inspire his team. He simply said, I want to create a business budget airline. And consequently, it's no surprise that his team didn't really listen to him. Arthur said, a lack of inspirational communication. Absolutely, lack of inspirational communication. So he basically told his team, this is what I want. So they sort of listened to him for a few seconds, and then they started talking amongst themselves again. And somebody said, oh, let's have a party airline. And suddenly everyone jumped on that bandwagon. And being in the minority, he ended up agreeing to that. But his face told a completely different story. When you looked at his face, and they focused on his face quite a bit, and I accept that a lot of these are edited footages that we see, but his face was a grimace. He really was not happy that they were going to follow this line of creating this budget party airline. It's not what he wanted to do. In fact, at one point, before they actually said that, he said, no, I really don't want that. But because he hadn't created his vision, because he hadn't communicated his vision in the right way to motivate and inspire his team and buy them into his vision, he lost that battle. So they went on, and they were going to create this budget airline that was all about party destinations. Rosina says, I personally don't like the way he talks. He has no manners. Yeah, absolutely. That sort of takes me on to my next point. The next thing that I noticed with him, Rosina, was that he distinctly lacked empathy. There were so many times throughout the whole project, as they were planning and creating these adverts, as they were creating the uniforms, as they were creating the brand name, as they were creating and editing the video footage, there were so many times when other members of the group were trying to give him their perspective. And I'll be honest, whatever he said that they were rude to him, that they were not understanding of him later on, actually I thought they were all being very, very polite and very supportive of him as a leader. But every time somebody spoke to him, what he did, and you saw this, he would put his hand up or his finger up, and he'd physically sort of block out what they were trying to say. He did not choose or even try or even attempt to see things from another person's perspective. Leadership is all about relationship management for me. It is about the technical skills around, being able to visualize something and create this vision and create a journey, a roadmap towards that journey. But fundamentally, in terms of the how, you need to have very, very effective relationship management skills. And empathy, i.e. being able to see something from another person's perspective, is fundamental to all of that. And without empathy, you really don't get people. If you don't get people, you can't really be an effective leader. And he demonstrated all of that. Everything that was wrong with everything about how not to do relationship management, he demonstrated yesterday. There's a young lady on his team called Khadija Khalifa. She's actually become a friend of mine now. And Khadija is, I'm quite excited to say, she's actually going to be coming to Ignite Your Inner Potential in January. So I'm super honoured that we've got her attending Ignite. Now, Khadija can be a tough lady. I've seen her in the past and the way that she talks. But on this occasion, the only thing that he could criticise Khadija for was that when they were shooting the video on the beach, after the video shot had been finalised, after they'd stopped shooting, she screamed in a very excited way. And he got really, really upset about that. And I thought to myself, this is either power going to your head or you're not seeing the big picture. Actually, you should have welcomed her passion, her enthusiasm, her motivation and her excitement, because essentially the message that you were getting there was that even though she didn't agree with what you were doing, you had sufficiently done something to excite her about the process. And if we don't excite our teams, if we don't get our teams excited about what we're doing, they're never going to do it to the highest level. But instead what he did, he criticised Khadija. He criticised her very, very loudly and very vocally. And he continued to criticise her even when it came to the boardroom at the very, very end. He only brought her into the boardroom because she had screamed excitedly, which I thought was very, very strange of him. But nonetheless, he was a person that was chosen by Lord Alan Sugar to be fired. Quite right so, in my opinion. But I thought that he missed so many points there, and it was all down to a lack of empathy. My final lesson that I got from this guy was the importance of communication. The importance of being very clear in your communication. If you are not clear in your communication as a leader, then how do you think your team would respond? How clear do you think the thinking of your team is? How clearly do they know what they need to do? There was a point in the program where he was with his sub-team, and he'd created another sub-team to look at the branding and the uniform. And what he did essentially there was this second team was responsible for creating the uniform and the branding, and they were also going to create the brand name. But he'd already got an idea of a brand name, and he was really strong about this because he'd had a conversation. You saw him having a conversation with his own sub-team and saying, I really like this name. And even though they didn't agree with him, he continued to persevere. No, I really like this name. I want this name. So he rang this other sub-team up who were already drawing up lists of names. And he said to them, he says, this is the name that I really like. He said, I want you to put that at the top of your list when you are considering names. And they said, well, we're still considering names. He said, well, I'll put this at the top of your list. So consequently, they put it at the top of the list, but then other names started coming forward within their sub-team, and they chose another name. Now, in hindsight, when I think about that other name, and it's for an airline, they called it Jet Pop, and they actually they made the O look like a bang. For an airline, that's perhaps not a very clever thing to do. And eventually, what the team have to do is they go on a stage and they have to present it to a panel of experts and an audience. And the panel of experts all picked up on the fact that this was an awful name to use. But the thing that he complained about later on was that, well, I told you what name to use. I told you we needed to go with the other name. And you went against everything that I said, and you chose this name. The thing is, they didn't really go against him. It was the fact that he didn't communicate it clearly enough. If he had said, this is the name I want to use, then they would have been very, very clear that this was a non-negotiable situation and that the leader wanted this name. So all they needed to do was create this name. But they thought there was room for movement because he wasn't very clear in what he was saying. He didn't categorically say that this is the name that we need to do. And that was a great demonstration of how, if you are very unclear in your communication as a leader, you may end up getting results that you really do not want. So guys, those were the three key leadership not to do points that I picked up from yesterday. Having said that, this guy was an awful leader. He really was an awful leader. I couldn't pick up on any good things that he did as a leader. He was arrogant. He had no connection with his team. He didn't listen to his team. He didn't demonstrate any level of democracy as being a democratic leader, which is one of the leadership styles that we have in emotional intelligence. He wasn't an authoritative leader as described in emotional intelligence, which is the visionary leader. He didn't really talk about a great vision. He spent most of his time wanting to direct a 30-second television advert. And leadership is more than just about that. So let's see what one or two people are saying. I've noticed one or two are saying things. Hey Rachel, good to see you. So we've got India now on the line here. Kieran, good to see you. So where are we? We're in America, we're in South Africa, we're in India, and of course we're in the UK. That's incredible. Arthur says empathy is a powerful emotion that is directly related to people having emotional intelligence. Yeah, there we go. Emotional intelligence, I think, is so critical for leadership. It is a skill that can be learnt, but many lack it, absolutely. Arthur says also related to common sense, thoughtfulness, respect, and a depth of intuitive thinking that shows low self-esteem of a leader who feels overwhelmed by the power of others. Many leaders fail when they create a vision of why, but they fail to guide with a how to achieve. Very, very true. And finally, she says, telling is one thing. If the leader is not decisive, then people will do what they want regardless. Or they'll do what they think is necessary to get the task done, to get the job done, to complete the project that's sitting in front of them. And it might not be the way the leader thinks it should be done, but if the leader's not telling them, not giving them guidance, then what do you expect? So guys, isn't it fascinating how just watching a television program can get you thinking? And I remember as I was watching this program with Taj last night, all I talked about was his leadership skills, or lack of leadership skills. And I said, I think he's going to go because his leadership is awful, really awful. The sad thing is, in reality, there are leaders like that in organizations. There really are leaders like that in organizations. I've seen them in the past, and I will see them again. And others will have experienced leadership very similar to that. People who, because of some demons within themselves, because of some lack of confidence that they may well have, or some conditioning that they may have, or some society or some organizational pressure that they may be under, they'll resort to the fight or flight syndrome and come out fighting as a leader. But the problem with that is when you get into the adrenaline driven mode, your peripheral awareness disappears and you get into this focal thinking, and focal thinking is always about fight or flight. It's always about fight or flight, and then you lose the ability to communicate effectively, to see things from different perspectives, to even inspire people. So rather than relying on inspiring, envisioning, you start relying more and more on being directive and controlling and commanding. And that is not an effective leadership style. There is time and place to be commanding and controlling. And I've been in those situations when you're in a high critical, time-bound situation where a job needs to be done, it needs to be done now. Then of course you need to be much more directive. But in the vast majority of times, leadership is about people. Leadership is about taking people with you. And the mark of an outstanding leader, I always say, is not how good a leader you are, but how many leaders you create. And without empathy and effective communication, you will never create many leaders behind you. So guys, I hope this has been a valuable Facebook Live for you. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Facebook Live. And don't forget to join Ignite Your Inner Potential group, because as of Sunday, most of my Facebook Lives will be there. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.